WhiskyJason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American in Germany tasting rare and exotic whiskeys. And today I have something from Ireland, from Pearse Lyons actually, Irish Whiskey Cooper Select. So this is batch number 1, 42% with a sherry cask finish, a 7-year-old blended whiskey. So I was in the summer of 2018 on my own personal Irish whiskey trail. Went from the very south of Ireland, Waterford, along the east coast, all the way up to Echtlinville on the east coast in the northern Ireland, all the way over the Derry, and visited a total of 9 different distilleries, including the Pearse Lyons distillery in Dublin. 2017, they opened the St. James. It used to be a church, which was actually desacrated, I think is the word in English. In German, I know the word. I don't know the word in English. So the church is no longer a church, so it's no longer part of the holy buildings. And over the years, we had different types of stores in there. At the end, there was actually just a lamp store. It was really, really terrible. I was in Dublin a few years ago with my mom. We were walking through. I saw this beautiful church across the road, got up there, architect's office. And that's what's happening a lot in Ireland, is less and less people go to church. More and more churches are then turned into office buildings, turned into distilleries, and so on. Now, Mr. Pearse Lyons was Irish. He died a few months ago in March of 2018, if I got the month right. And he immigrated to the United States. He made his fortune with animal food additives. And then he actually created in Lexington, Kentucky, together with his wife, their own distillery for Town Branch bourbon. And then he decided, hey, I'd like to give something back to the community in Dublin. And he bought this church and the cemetery. He later on found out that I think over 5 or maybe even 8 of his relatives were buried there. As a little boy, 4 years old, he actually attended a funeral in that church with one of his, I think it was his uncle or his grandfather actually. And so he has a personal connection with this area. And it took much longer to turn this church building into a distillery. Now, this is what it looks like. I'm just going to hold up my little prospect, my brochure here. You see the chapel here at the top. It's glass, it's illuminated. It's called the Beacon of the Liberties. This is actually what the distillery looks like. This is the altar area where they put the 2 pot stills there. Pot stills are from Kentucky, by the way. And what we also have here is their selection of the original 4 whiskeys they decided to bring out. I have the original here. Very expensive for me because I sent it from Ireland over here. 25 euros postage just alone for this. They have the distiller's choice, which I did not buy. My suitcase was full. I brought over 9 whiskeys, and I had to pick and choose. Then we have here the Cooper Select, which I found the best of the 4. And we also have the Founder's Choice, which is a 12-year-old whiskey. Now, this is actually a blend, and this is also a blend, which means we have single malt, and we have grain. Double distilled, which means coulis. Now, this will actually still be batch 1, batch 2, and there might actually be batch 3 of the... Wow, Jason, terrible. Of the Distiller's Choice, which is a 7-year-old. This is also going to be... this is also going to be renewed, but the only thing is the Cooper Select... This is not going to be renewed. There was batch 1 and batch 2. I received a batch 1 bottle, very, very good. It says, grain and malt whiskey originally aged in bourbon cask were blended and re-casked in Orlolozo sherry cask to create a full-flavored special finish. Finished for over 3 years in sherry casks. This very special limited edition whiskey has a tremendous wood and sherry character. I must admit that is very, very good. And the 12-year-old will also be re-released again and again until they have their own. watch this space. I actually did buy the 5-year-old Pearse cask strength, 1,000 bottles total, only available at the Dublin and Cork airports. So I went into the Dublin airport, walked up to the guy there at the Loop, that's the name of the whiskey store. I said, I want the cask strength Pearse 5-year-old. He says, I like a man who knows what he wants. And I bought something else, and it was great. All right, so let's nose this, and this is fantastic Ortolozzo sherry. This is empty. The original is like, I didn't get much. That's comical almost. All right, the original. This is also very, very nice Irish. It's grain, it's single malt, it's lemon, it's a little bit of lime peel. It's lemon meringue pie is actually what it is, to be honest. Over here, we don't have lemon meringue pie. We have sherry wood. Very, very, very nice. Now, the history of Irish whiskey, briefly. Irish whiskey in the 17th and 18th century actually had between 60 and 70% of the world whiskey consumption was from Ireland. Amazing. They actually produced more whiskey in the 17th century with their antique methods than in Ireland than they do today in Scotland. That's what the lady said, at least Teeling at Fran. And so that was just, there were 400 different distilleries back then actually making whiskey, and I just can't imagine where all that grain came from. And of course, they shipped it off all over the world. A man named Mr. Coffey, Irish guy, produced and invented something called the column still. Bourbon almost exclusively is made in the column still, so thank you very much, Irish whiskey, for that, or the Irish. Only, wow, I forgot my name here. Only Bushmill, Woodford. I wanted to say Waterford. Woodford is the only one that I know of that is a big player that actually produces on pot stills. All right, so Mr. Coffey produces his column stills. Irish people say no. He goes to Scotland. They love it. They start producing cheap blended whiskey, a lot of grain whiskey produced with these rectifying plates, and then they mix it with just a little bit of single malt and say, that's almost as good. It costs half the price. And so they actually conquer the world. And back in the 1990s up into 2000, 3% of the entire world consumption was Irish whiskey. Of those 3%, two of them were Jameson. Thank you very much, Jameson, for keeping that light of the Irish whiskey alive. And now we have 30 different whiskey distilleries in building and commissioning and planning process. Basically 16 have or are being built at the moment. I was able to visit 9 of them, to be honest. Amazing, amazing, amazing what's happening there in Ireland. It's fantastic. And that church here in the heart of the Liberties in Dublin is actually one of the best places to go. My wife does not like whiskey, and she loved the tour. She loved the fact that this beautiful place, this church, was actually making whiskey. Gerald, who is the head distiller, he actually designed and commissioned this, 20-some years of experience at Guinness beforehand, and his number one concern was noise. As you can imagine, the acoustics of a church are great. And if you've ever been to a distillery, they're not quiet. And so you'd have all this noise echoing all over the place. So he actually has slow starting motors. Usually a motor goes, ding, and he actually had to purchase something for more money. And everywhere you heard just very, very, very low. But it wasn't enough in any way to actually disturb you. You did hear the flow of the liquids. That's something that they were not able to totally dampen that sound. But other than that, my wife was like, is it a working distillery? I said, yes, you can see the things bubbling. You can actually see the spirit still was running at that moment. There, and the spirit say distillate was coming out. And she says, wow, that's amazing. And they actually just do the cleaning in the early morning before the visitors come, or in the evening after the visitor comes. They have 2 master distillers at the moment. They have a 3 or a 4 day shift. each 12 hours. And so they actually can do everything they need within those 12 hours. And everything's set up that a lot of computer sensors monitor everything, and the master distiller can actually just touch and see, and they don't have to always be doing and deciding what's going on, but they have a lot of time to talk with the visitors as well. So let's taste this finally. Gave it some time in the glass. This is the old nice sherry. Lovely. I didn't know it was 3-year-old finish. That's fabulous. Very nice. This is a B. Definitely a B. Good stuff. Going over here, the original. You still have that character of the distillery that they will have in the future. I will find out if it's true or not. But it's missing all the complexity, all the depth, all the strength of this sherry cask finishing. Oh, what a shame that they're not going to renew this. But I guess if you're going to have your own whiskey, why not use it? There is 1,000 bottles of the cask strength at the airport, almost gone, and there's 4,000 bottles coming out at the distillery and selected shops in Ireland at the moment. And then there will be more and more coming out over the next years. Value for money. As I said, I paid 70 euros for this bottle at the distillery. Online it's $69.99, so I could have saved 1 cent by walking 800 meters in one direction. Didn't do that. Not worth the money. So it's a C- for that. It's good, but I can buy other stuff for half the price. It's almost as good. That's the only problem, but I do like this. It's my favorite of the 4, as we said here. So this, the 12-year-old, is basically, if you can find West Cork 12-year-old, identical. Identical, and half the price. Cooper's Select, yummy, yummy, yummy. Pearse, the distiller's choice, I had that. It was nice. And of course the original I have myself, which is nice as well, but not for that price, especially not for the price, including a 20 euro price increase because of postage and handling. All right, so I'm going to give this a solid B as well as a C- for the value for money. That's it. So my question of the day, of course, has to deal with the church. Is it okay to turn a church into a distillery? I'm going to say yes. Basically because in 1974 it was no longer church. It's been used for 4 other places in the meanwhile, and then they turned it into distillery. Otherwise they would have tore it down, turned it into a car park or an apartment building or whatever else. I'd rather have a rich person come on along, restore the church, save the cemetery, and keep this thing alive. Now, if it would be a church and then the next day we decided, oh, we're going to turn it into distillery, I have mixed feelings about that. But since there was about 35 years of something else in between, then I can say no problem whatsoever. Personal opinion. What is your personal opinion? Can these sacred buildings be turned into a place to make spirits? Ooh, spirits. Oh, by the way, Eric, a shout out, Eric Watts. The sniper, also called from the Scotch Test Dummies, he actually has a whiskey church, so you can watch his live streams. I'm not really sure if I like the concept of whiskey church, but I think it is for some people a very good idea. He did study theology. He does have his bachelor, master's, something. He does have a diploma in theology, therefore he does have the right to talk about whiskey church. But he does have his live streams, and all his thumbnails often have some type of stained glass windows and so on in there. Great guy. I learned a lot from him, so I can recommend his videos as well. WhiskyJason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of American in Germany, tasting rare and exotic whiskeys. Thank you very much for watching. Like, subscribe, and tell others about this channel and this crazy guy over in Europe tasting things you'll probably never get your hands on. See you soon. Bye-bye.